Today, I want to talk about what it was like to grow up black in a predominantly white environment. Buckle your seatbelts because I might ruffle some feathers with this one, but it's important. So let's talk about it. What's up everybody, Chase here, and if this is your first video watching, make sure you start by hitting that subscribe button. I post a new video like this every single Thursday. I don't know what that was, it's like I'm about to get into a fight or something. I want to talk about sharing my experience about what it's like growing up as one of the only black people in a predominantly white community. Now before I jump right into it, I just want to say three things. One, I don't speak on behalf of the entire black race. You might know someone who's black and had a different experience. You might be black and had a different experience. And so I don't want to make it seem like I'm speaking on behalf of everyone. This is just me sharing my experience. The second thing is I was originally going to make this video with my brother, but he's a busy man. His schedule just didn't work out and so we couldn't connect. But we actually made this list together. So this is kind of both of our experiences growing up. And then one third and final thing. All right, so with all those disclaimers out of the way, I'm sure someone's still gonna get offended by what I'm about to say, but here we go. So I said my brother and I made a list, so what I wanna do is I wanna share 10 things. I'm gonna try and keep this video kind of short, but 10 things that I experienced growing up black in a white area. So the first thing is black jokes. Yep, we're going there. We're diving right in, here we go. And by black jokes, I mean jokes about black stereotypes. I feel like sometimes I use those and I've seen other black people use those as a way to sort of cut the tension. Like for example, if you walk into an all-white room, you walk in, you're obviously the only black person, there's an elephant in the room already, and so sometimes I think we use those sort of jokes to sort of just get the elephant out of the room. Like, no one's talking about it, boom, there you go, you just made a joke, it just kind of softens the tension. Now the problem with that approach, and it's come back to bite me several times, is that then everyone else thinks that it's just free range to make as many offensive jokes as they can. And then it gets awkward. I'm like, why'd you say that? They're like, well, you said it, and it just leads to a big mess. And so I'd encourage you, if you are watching this video, that's not the right approach. But again, I'm just sharing my experiences, and that's one thing that I've had to deal with my whole life, is just the awkwardness surrounding black jokes. Often self-induced, but that's the first thing. The second thing is feeling awkward when topics of race would come up in class. When I was in high school, whenever the notion of slavery, whenever the notion of civil rights, anything that was black related, it's just awkward. I feel like the whole class is just staring at me like this. When I was in high school, I don't remember the teacher's name and I probably wouldn't call her out even if I did. We were talking about slavery or race or something, and she said, "Chase, can we get the black opinion on this topic?" And I was like, oh man, just get put on the spot like that. And that was the first time that actually happened, but whenever we talked about race, it just felt like that was happening. It feels like everyone's staring at you in the room. Number three, people touching my hair. And this is one of the ones that my brother gave me. My brother has dreads. I went through a phase in high school and junior high when I had braids, believe it or not, and I also had an afro. Side note, I feel like every black male who grew up in a white environment went through some hair phase where they had to prove to people that they were black. But people were always coming up just like patting my head like I'm Buddha and gonna give them good luck or something. And I don't know, it's weird. I've never had the urge to touch someone's hair of another race. It's not just me. I've had this conversation with several people and it's happened to them as well. People like touching our hair, I guess. It does not give you good luck. Number four, again, this is where it gets real. Being told that you're not black enough. So I'm gonna kind of touch on this more towards the end of this video, but that's one thing that I've heard ever since I was like in first grade or something. People would say, oh, you're not really black, or oh, you're not black enough, or the term, you're an Oreo, black on the outside, white on the inside. Don't ever say that to anybody. That's not a joke, that's not funny. But that's something that I would hear a lot growing up. That's something that my brother said that he hears a lot growing up, or has heard a lot growing up. But that's hurtful. And I'm gonna circle back to that because I'm gonna touch on that at the end. But that's something that a lot of black people who grew up in white areas experience. And this isn't on the list, but the other thing is they compare you to other black people. They say, oh, you're not as black as this person, or you're not as black as this person. And it's frustrating. Number five, assuming that you're close friends with someone just because they're black. All right, so most people aren't literally the only person in an all-white school or an all-white area. Usually there's like at least 2 or 3 of us. So for example, I was, I think, one of 8 in my graduating class from high school, one of 8 other black students. And there were like 240 people in our graduating class. but we weren't all necessarily really close friends, and everyone assumed that we were really close friends. Another quick story, when I first moved down here to Texas, I was working with this older lady. You know, we were talking and somehow the conversation of I was from Ohio came up, and she looked at me and she's like, oh, I knew a colored man from Ohio once. Another side note, don't call black people colored. That's not the term anymore. Anyway, she's like, I knew a colored man from Ohio once. His name was Mike. Did you know him? I was like, oh yeah, Mike, yeah. No, I don't remember what I said. I should have been like, yeah, we played basketball together and ate chicken on the weekends. You know, using those black jokes to cut the tension. But no, I don't remember what I said. But people just seem to assume that if we're black, we know other people who are black. Which sometimes is the case, but most often it's not. Number 7, being told that you're one of the good ones. That just sounds so racist. I mean, what does that even mean? I put it on the list because this is something that I've heard for my whole life. But I think if a lot of people sat there and thought about what they were about to say, they'd realize how racist that sounds. Because basically what they're saying is, I have this preconceived notion of what black people are, usually formed by the news and by rap culture. And so this is what I think black people are: drug dealers, people out there gangbanging, shooting people, all that stuff. And just because you don't fit into that mold of black people, you're one of the good ones. This is what most black people are like, but you're one of the good ones. Come on, man. I don't know. I wasn't planning on getting upset during this video, but I mean, this is something that I've been told several times. And the other thing that baffles me is that people treat this like a compliment. Anyway, I'm gonna move on because I don't want to make this video too long. Number 8, not fully fitting into either race. This is probably the biggest one. And when you grow up the minority in a majority culture, and you're one of the only ones in that minority, you kind of feel like you don't belong fully. And the reason why I say that is because growing up, I'd have white people who were telling me, oh, you're not black enough. But then I'd also have, you know, some of my black friends and family members saying, oh, you're not black enough. And so you look at my skin and you can tell that clearly I'm not white, but then I'm being told that I'm not black, so I'm like caught in the middle. You know, what am I? Joseph Solomon did a video a little while ago, black Christian YouTuber who you definitely need to check out, amazing channel. But he did a video called The Double Consciousness of Black Folk. He didn't make that phrase, that was coined by W.E.B. Du Bois years and years and years ago. But what he talks about in that video is that when you're black, you kind of learn to navigate different lifestyles. So you think one way when you're with black people, but then you realize you think a completely different way when you're in a white setting. And this is a conversation for another video that I'd love to dive into. But the reason why I bring that up is because when you grow up black in a white environment, you kind of carry that mindset with you in both. I don't know if that's, you know, triple consciousness, I don't know what to call that. When you're in a white setting, you act differently, whether it's subconsciously or whether it's purposely. But when you're black and you grow up in a white setting, you almost sort of have that attitude when you're around black people as well. You're like, am I gonna come across as too white if I'm in this environment? So this is one issue that I've dealt with my entire life. To some degree, I still do. But what's helped me overcome that is just the understanding that my identity is not based in my skin color, it's not based in the way I behave, it's based in the one that I serve, and that's being a Christian and being a follower of Christ. And so none of that other stuff matters when I'm putting him first. But I mean, to some degree, you know, everyone wants to feel like they belong, right? So that's one issue. Number 10, being everyone's black experience. Now, I almost didn't put this on the list because I don't want it to come across as that I don't want this to happen. So when you're the only black person who grows up in a predominantly white area, you're most people's only exposure to what it's like to be black. And so they're coming up to ask you questions all the time, and it almost puts a lot of pressure on us to kind of be the right black experience. Again, I started this video by saying I don't speak for the whole black race. But in a sense, it sort of seems like I do sometimes when I'm talking to my white friends. Now, the reason why I almost didn't put this in the video is because I've embraced that role. I'm fine with it. I enjoy it. If you're a white friend of mine, or if I don't even know you, I want you to come and ask me these questions, because if we don't have this conversation, then you might not have the chance to have this conversation with someone else before you say something that might offend someone else. I want you guys to keep asking me questions. I want to try and navigate these discussions together so that neither of us will offend someone else. So that's the list. I just realized I really didn't say anything positive, because there are positives. So I want to end this on a positive note. And that positive note is that I think when you grow up the minority in a majority culture, you kind of are able to think more like that majority culture. And what I mean by that is when things pop up in the news, when I have these difficult conversations, I'm able to think about it from the perspective of the person that I'm talking to. So that's a positive. I really hope that I didn't offend anyone in this video. Again, I wasn't talking about anyone specifically, but it's a conversation that I'd love to keep going. So if you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments below. If this is your first time watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you on another video.